I may not be the youngest candidate in this race, but I will be the youngest woman president in the history of...
So there she was this weekend relaunching her campaign. Hillary, she's in big time. It's official yet again. Joining us on the line is Simon Rosenberg, who is the president of the New Democratic Network. And also, I should say, a longtime Clinton associate. I mean, this is a man who was in the war room back in '92. Simon, good morning. You're on with Brian, and this morning Susan Faricio in for Larry O'Connor. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for being here. I mean, it seems to me that her biggest argument was, I am a woman, and it's time for a woman to be the president of the United States.
Well, we have to admit that line that you just played was awfully good and very creative. And in general, as somebody who has been with the Clintons, been around the Clintons for a long time, I think what we saw on Saturday was the best Hillary that I've seen. And I think her campaign in 2007, 2008 was not a good one, and she seemed uncomfortable and never really found her voice. I think she's off to a great start, and I think Democrats are pretty excited.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions, because number one, I mean, is gender, is that the main reason that people should vote for Hillary, that it's just time for a woman?
No, I think if you watch the speech, and it was a long speech, frankly, longer than a lot of us thought it would be, there was an enormous amount of substance and also a big argument about what she wants to do. I mean, her basic formula of an economy for all, strong families and communities, muscular foreign policy and political reform is a really strong offering, frankly. And I thought to me, it's the most mature and sophisticated argument that any of the presidential candidates are making in either party at this point. And that may have been lost in some of the fluff on Saturday.
But she faces an uphill battle in one regard, in that when you look at the polls on Hillary, her unfavorables are on the rise. There are a lot more people who are just disenchanted with her, a lot more than have been in the past.
Look, I think she and Jeb Bush have very similar challenges. They've got to go out and prove themselves. I mean, they both are, establishment figures in a time when being an establishment political candidate in either party is not the best positioning. And they're going to go out, they both can win their primaries, but they have to go out and win it. And Hillary showed in 2007, 2008 that even though she was the putative front runner and in a very strong position, she didn't get it done. So I think she's running a very hungry race. I mean, as somebody who's worked on two presidential campaigns from the very beginning to the very end, the Clinton campaign is much hungrier, much more in touch, I think, with where the American people are, and with a very young staff, by the way. They've brought in a lot of younger Obama veterans who are very different from the older Clinton folks, and I think that she's going to give it a good run. She's going to be a formidable candidate, but I think everyone expects it to be a very competitive general election, whoever the Republicans pick.
But you're not expecting a very competitive Democratic primary at this point?
I doubt it. I mean, I think she's in very strong shape. There's some evidence that Bernie Sanders is getting a little bit of a bump. I think it would be, in general, as a free market Democrat, think that primaries are good. They toughen you up and make you stronger, and it forces you to win and get better. And so I hope that the Democratic primary is competitive, more competitive than it appears, and because it will test her early. Look, she got tested in 2007, 2008, and didn't pass the test. She didn't get through the primary, and so these things really matter for both parties.
What do you make of her talk on trade? She's siding with Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi on wanting the Trade Promotion Authority bill to be changed and pushed a little bit further to appeal to the Democrats in the House. I see that you support it in its current form. What do you make of Hillary Clinton siding with Nancy Pelosi on this?
Truthfully, I don't think it really matters very much because she doesn't have a vote in Congress. I mean, what's really going to matter is what happens with John Boehner and Barack Obama this week and whether they can put the deal back together. And remember, we now have a clear majority for Trade Promotion Authority in both the Senate and the House. 219 people voted to pass TPA on Friday. I know these are acronyms and people get confused.
Right. No.
But passed the most important part of it. And what we had was this unusual circumstance where TPA passed, but it didn't pass. So I think I would rather be in that position than, it didn't really fail. I mean, I think the media portrayal of what happened on Friday was a little bit simplistic. We have the votes. We just have to figure out procedurally how to get it through the Congress now. The first effort to get it through, given the arcane rules of the House, didn't work, and I think we can get this done in the next few weeks.
All right, I want you to listen to this little clip from her thing this weekend, and I want to ask you a question about it. Take a listen.
The two Democratic presidents of the last 35 years, one Barack Obama, the other my husband, showed that it is possible to do better.
All right, so there she is. She's talking about, associating herself with the current president of the United States. Yet she leaves him on the issue of trade and disagrees with him very publicly. I raise that because it seems to me that when you have an unpopular Democratic president, and you're running for the Democratic nominee, that you're going to have to walk away from the sitting president quite a bit. How much of that is going to be a problem?
I mean, that's just not true. I mean, if you look at most polls, he's up in the high 40s, low 50s, and I think that with an improving economy, he's going to be in a position where he'll neither be in all likelihood, he will neither be an enormous asset nor liability for Hillary Clinton in 2016, is my view. I think there are going to be areas where they're going to disagree. I think, that's the normal course of things. Look, if you want, the most important thing for me about Hillary Clinton's campaign this time, based on what you raised earlier about the first woman, is that we have to let her be her, right? I mean, it's pejorative or demeaning to her to view her as somebody who doesn't have the independence and capacity to sort of mount her own argument in her own campaign. She's different from her husband. She's different from Barack Obama, and she's going to run a very different race.
All right.
And so I think that's what we should expect.
And to those who look at her foreign policy experience when she was Secretary of State and say, well, she was wrong on Russia, she was wrong on Libya. There are those who are very concerned as she left that we find out that all of her emails were in a private server and that we don't know what was on them, and we only got the emails that she deemed that were important. What do you say to the people who look at her record and say it's not particularly a great record?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very important part of the campaign. I think you're right to focus on it. I think that as a Democrat, the way I feel right now, and I know many listeners aren't going to agree with what I'm about to say, is that the economy is far better than where it was when the Democrats took office. We've passed universal health care, which has been very successful. We're moving on immigration reform. The domestic issues, I think, are moving towards the Democrats' favor, which is why the Republicans are putting so much emphasis on foreign policy. And I think that Hillary, given her record and given that, this has been every president, going back to Ronald Reagan, has struggled with making the Middle East better, she's going to have to make an argument about why she's going to leave the world better than she found it.
How do you see the Benghazi stuff playing into this? There's going to be Congress is going to be doing hearings on this. They're going to want to know more about her role and what she did or didn't do to help the situation there. How do you think this will play into it?
I don't think it's significant, and I think we've investigated this thing up and down. It was a single incident on a single night. I think that in totality, the thing that was raised earlier is what is her argument about how she's going to make the world better, how she's going to make her broader foreign policy argument for the Democrats is going to be, over time, going to be much more important. I think if Benghazi was really going to produce for the Republicans the way they wanted, we would have seen more activity by now. And I just don't. I think it's not going to. It's a waste. I think it's a waste of their time. We're going to go through it, and she's got to defend herself. But I think a year from now, it's going to be an afterthought.
Okay, we'll see about that one. Okay, well, listen, Simon Rosenberg, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate the opportunity, guys. Give my best to Larry.
Well, we will. Okay. We will, absolutely. I know he's going to regret missing you.
Well, every Tuesday at Fox, around 2:15, you guys can watch us together.